Is this the dagger?
G'day guys, JB here. We are less than 3 weeks left in the 23-24 NBA season, and the players are really starting to sort themselves out from pretenders to contenders when it comes to the MVP race. Obviously there are some players who I feel would still be in the let's say best 10 players that the league has seen this year that aren't eligible. There are other guys who are likely going to play a few games towards the end of the year, but not be eligible to it. But that is unfortunately how the cookie crumbles, and there's probably going to be a couple of guys here who are just going to miss the cut purely because of, preference and how I vote things and how I look at things in this list. It's not the easiest list to compile. Sometimes it's a real hair-pulling exercise, but I generally feel it gives a good gauge and a good cover on how the season has played out. So without further ado, let's get into it. Let's get into my MVP race to the end of March for the 23-24 NBA season. Of course, we start with the qualifiers as always. And the big one there that is just starting to really affect a lot of people, it's the 65 game pace. I used to have 70 games, but it's now 65 games. We'll see how it goes. I think 70 games would have been plenty. I think 65 is going to be a really nice cut here and there where it needs to be. It's just something that people need to live with and understand now. It's going to separate the boys from the men, so to speak. But 65 game pace is a must. You've got to be leading your team to wins. It's okay to be, competing in games, but you've got to be winning games. As much as people don't think seeding matters, it does. You're not showing a great lot of value if you're not really about the mark as far as teams in the postseason and keeping them in contention. That's just purely a fact. I don't want to hear any arguments to the contrary. Ideally, no trade talks are having not been traded. There is a particular player that, if they have a really heavy run at the end of the season, may very well look to be cracking all-NBA level selection. And I thought was an all-star this year, but was traded. And that immediately, for me, disqualified them from any serious MVP conversation. And of course, if you've got that pace as far as playing games, if you're leading your team to wins, you're not being talked about in a trade, generally, you're a playoff chance. And that's exactly where things are sitting right now for most of these players. So without further ado, we will start with the honourable mentions. And I've got 4 of them. You can see them on the screen there. We have Steph Curry from the Golden State Warriors, who to the end of March sitting in the 10th spot in the West. I've got Jalen Brunson of the New York Knicks sitting 4th in the East. Domantas Sabonis of the Sacramento Kings sitting 7th in the West. And Anthony Davis of the Los Angeles Lakers sitting 9th in the West. And of course, when you look at those guys there, I've got Steph at being responsible for 24 wins, and I've got Brunson, Sabonis, and Davis all responsible for 20 wins each. For Steph Curry, 26.6 points, 4.3 rebounds, 5 assists, 0.7 steals, 0.3 blocks on 2.8 turnovers. Just a tad under 45% from the field, 40.3% from deep, 92.4% from the free throw line. Played 68 games, averaged 32.7 minutes in those games. 39-29 record, so 10 games above 500 with Steph in the lineup. 24 of those 39 wins credited to Curry there. Having a down year by comparison, but still having a massive year for me. All of these players that are being mentioned are all NBA level players, just for some perspective, and I've got no issue with Steph Curry being an all-NBA player this year. Jalen Brunson, as I mentioned, the Knicks in 4th, and it really was tough to squeeze him in, but to give you an idea, my number 10th seed at the time of writing, at the time of compiling this at the end of March, was sitting 4th in the West, and ultimately had a better record. And I think it's the two-way nature of that particular player's game that sets him apart just from Brunson. But Brunson this year, massive season, 27.9 points, 3.6 rebounds, 6.5 assists, 0.9 steals, 0.2 blocks, less than 3 turnovers at 2.4, 47.8 from the field, 40% from deep, 84% from the free throw line. Massive season there for Jalen Brunson. Genuinely broken out, really, snapped that mould, and is a massive reason New York is a genuine second round team right now. He's played 69 games, 35.1 minutes in those games, 20 wins to his name, and the Knicks 43 and 26 in those games there. So you were talking about a guy who's actually led New York to a better overall record than that of Steph Curry this year. Just a bit of perspective of the season that Brunson's having, and a bit of perspective as well to the sort of season Steph's having. That's not a knock on Steph, it's certainly a compliment to Brunson. Of course, Sabonis, as I mentioned there for the Kings, 7th in the West, 19.6 points, 13.6 rebounds, 8.3 assists, 3.3 turnovers, 0.9 steals, 0.6 blocks a game, and just the efficiency from the floor. 60.2% from the field, 39.7 from deep, 70.8 from the free throw line. He's played 74 games, 35.8 minutes in those games. Kings, 12 games above 500 in the games he's played, 43 and 31 for those 20 wins. Sabonis, the second best centre in the league this season. Really easy to do. He'd be third if another guy hadn't got injured. And I do believe that guy who got injured has, realistically led his team to more wins this season. That's the kind of run that particular player, Joel Embiid, was having. But a really nice big year again for Sabonis. The man in Sacramento, I don't think there's any questions on that. It's just going to be a matter of what happens moving forward with them, but a nice season for him. And of course, Anthony Davis, as I mentioned, 9th in the West for the Lakers. 24.7 points, 12.7 rebounds, 3.6 assists. And the defensive numbers just right up there once again. 1.2 steals, 2.4 blocks, a tad over 2.1, just over 2 turnovers a game at 2.1. Efficient splits, 55.5 from the field, 28.7 from deep. You'd like to see a bit more. 81.6 from the free throw line. Davis on his night looks like the best player in the NBA. Davis, for a number of years, on his best night, has looked like the best player in the NBA. Anthony Davis hasn't been the best player in the NBA since about 2018. I can make a genuine case Anthony Davis was the MVP of the NBA in 2018, if I really wanted to. That's the level of season that he had. Playing both sides of the ball, might I add. He's had 70 games this year. They've been 40 and 30 in those games. 35.9 minutes, 20 wins to his name. He's had a monster season. I've got no reason to believe that you won't see these men not in an All-NBA team. That is just the kind of level they're playing at. Of course, the next guys I mentioned, they're all going to be in the All-NBA team. And we will start at number 10. And at number 10, I have Kawhi Leonard of the Los Angeles Clippers. The Clippers at the end of March, 4th in the West. Kawhi, 23.7 points, 6.1 rebounds, 3.6 assists, 1.6 steals, 0.9 blocks, and here's the efficiency, ladies and gentlemen. Less than 2 turnovers a game at 1.8. 52.5 from the field, 41.7 from deep, 88.5 from the free throw line, 68 games played at the time of writing for 34.3 minutes, 44 and 24 record for 20 wins. Just a massive season, the best season we've seen out of Kawhi since his year in Toronto. Now, I did like his first year with the Clippers. I really did. But from an efficient standpoint, from a dominant standpoint, this is Kawhi's best season since he played in Toronto. And he had a real genuine case as the man that season. Obviously, Giannis had a really good year, won the MVP. But you look at what Kawhi did in that postseason, topping off what he did in the regular season. Yeah, he didn't play enough games, but, I mean, games never seemed to be a thing that mattered much until a narrative started last year. So this, to me, has been Kawhi's best season as a Clipper. It's been his best season since Toronto. Just having massive impact, and it's just efficiency. Doesn't necessarily get about it defensively as much as he used to, but he's still a capable defender. Still make a case he's a top 10 defender in the league. But it's the efficiency, it's the ease of practice that he has when he's on the floor that just makes it really, really tough. And I know he's playing on a good team. Paul George has had a really nice season himself. But Kawhi Leonard, a really, really nice year. His best year since Toronto, best year in half a decade. And having interacted with Clayton Crowley, the YouTube historian of more modern times, it's crazy to think that we're going to say Kawhi Leonard left a lot in the tank and is still a what-if case. A massive, massive season for Kawhi Leonard. Number 10 in my MVP race. Moving over to number 9, we move over to the Phoenix Suns. 8th in the West, I've got Kevin Durant. And Durant just another big, efficient year. 27.6 points, 6.7 rebounds, 5.2 assists, 0.9 steals, 1.3 blocks. Turnover's going to be there with the pace and the usage that the Suns play with at 3.3. But it's 7 foot, it's 53% from the field, it's 42.5 from deep, and it's a tick over 85% from the free throw line. Durant, one of the best shooters of a basketball, 3-level scorer, if you want to call it, that the league's seen. And he's continuing to pile it on in year 17. Not that I weigh into too much about that, considering the pace and the space, the way the league is played now. But he's played 67 games, 37.1 minutes, 38-29 record for 21 wins. And if there was going to be a real question around Kevin Durant right now, it's the fact that at times he plays too much of a backseat. Shows that he's not the absolute alpha at times, which has been the one criticism of his career. The ultimate criticism is he hasn't led a team to the promised land. He's been the best team on a championship team. He did it twice. And he put up historical offensive numbers in the NBA Finals for a small forward. Like Larry Bird and LeBron James, the only other people in that argument. But it is just that question about being the man and being the leader. And when you really look at how stacked that roster is with Devin Booker, the way Bradley Beal's played, with the way Grayson Allen shot the ball, with the ability of Nurkic, you know, and you're a team that's going to be fighting in for a play-in tournament spot potentially. So that's the big qualm I have with Kevin Durant. Is, you know, you want to really crunch the numbers and crack the nuts on that sort of thing. That's where the criticism comes in. The question just needs to be asked of Kevin Durant in that sense. But a massively efficient year. He's been the best player this year for Phoenix. I can still make a case Devin Booker's their most valuable. But he's had a massive year offensively for Phoenix. Still chipping through, and that's what makes the Suns so dangerous in the postseason. You've got a team that's, hey, if we're really up and about here, we could run the table from a low seed. But if we have 3 bad games, we're done. We could be done in the first round. And depending on how they play, they might not get out of a play-in tournament. And that's the real concern that you have for Phoenix there. But number 9, Kevin Durant, the Phoenix Suns. Up to number 8 there, and a man who should make those 65 games, even after some questions. Tyrese Halliburton of the Indiana Pacers, 6th in the East, doing the best that he can there, trying to get his team over the top. 20.3 points, 4 rebounds, 11 assists, 1.2 steals, 0.7 blocks, a tad over 2 turnovers a game to go with those points, to go with those assists. Efficient from the field at 47.6, 36.5. Nice from the line at 85.7. 32.2 minutes for that level of production. You've got the Pacers 8 games above 500 in games he's played across those 62, and I've got him responsible for 22 wins. It's scary to think that a guy is going to have 20 and 10 from the point guard position and not be in the All-NBA first team. That's the realistic situation right now for Halliburton. You know, because he hasn't been Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. He hasn't been, to me, Anthony Edwards. And he certainly hasn't been Luka Doncic. And you do have to weigh that up at the fact that, you know, previously, if you were going to go the best point guard in the league, you've got a genuine case. He's the best point guard in the NBA. And if you were picking on position, he makes the All-NBA first team. But right now, you're talking about a guy who's probably going to squeeze into the second team. The other side of that, he has been strongly outplayed since Siakam has turned up to Indiana. I would make a case in the time that Siakam has been in Indiana, he's been their best player. And another factor to that is size. Siakam's just bigger. Basketball, as much as people don't want to admit it, is about size. And the reason you can say it is clearly about size is the reason that guys like Steve Nash, Allen Iverson, Steph Curry, Chris Paul are outliers in your all-time top 50 list. If you realistically want to go through the 20 greatest players to ever play in the NBA, you have maybe 5 of them that are under 6'5". And you can make a genuine case that the other 15 are at least 6'8". At least. So that's the big reason that Siakam just has that advantage at the moment. He can do more. He's got more size about him. But I think that's the couple of things that have really hurt Indiana, that have really hurt Halliburton here. He's going to get the games required. He hasn't been the strongest guard in the league this year. He did start out like a house on fire, but he hasn't been the guard of the year. And he's been outplayed in his own team. You know, barely getting games. You're not the man amongst your own peers. And you're being outplayed since they've joined your team. It's really a tough one to reconcile. But I don't think there's any doubt that he's been one of the 10 best players in the NBA this year. I don't think there's any doubt that he's an all-NBA player. I don't think there's any doubt he deserves to be on the MVP list or anyone's MVP list for this season. Moving to number 7, and this is one that a lot of people will question, a lot of people will debate, but when you're going to have a team that continues to compete, that continues to play well, that's been 500 for all but 25 games, you know, been on that 500 win pace for pretty much all but the first 25 games of your career. They've hit 500 again this year. They're going to stay above 500. They're most likely not going to even be in the play-in tournament. They're going to be in the play-off straight away. I have to give Paolo Banchero his flowers for the Orlando Magic. 5th in the East at the time of writing, 22.4 points, 6.8 rebounds, 5.3 assists, 0.8 steals, 0.6 blocks. You know, it happens. He's a rookie. Not bad if your rookie turnaround is to be one of the 10 best players in the league. 3.1 turnovers. That's one way to avoid the rookie hangover. Efficiency is going to grow, 46.3% right now, 35.3 from deep, 71.3 from the free throw line. In his 72 games, he's played 34.8 minutes, 12 games above 500 at 42 and 30, and I've got him responsible for 24 of those wins. Banchero looked like an all-NBA talent when he stepped out the floor immediately. You've only got to look at his build, you've only got to look at his aggression, the way he plays, the way he wants to take the game on. Someone needed to step up about a month into the season here for Orlando, and he did. And in doing that, he's secured them a playoff spot. Not a play-in spot, a playoff spot. There's not much more that he's going to have to do or going to be able to do right now. If Banchero isn't on an all-NBA team, I'm going to be a little concerned as to how much basketball people are watching. He's clearly the number one guy on this very young team. He's the catalyst for this team. And he's got some great young support around him, there's no doubt about it. But let's put some things into perspective here. We're talking about a second-year player in this list. That's incredible. A second-year player pushing a team into the playoffs. A team that started 5-20 last year, has been above 500 since. He's playing good basketball. Now, of course, you're going to see a better version of him as the year goes along, as his career goes along. No one's doubting that. You do need some perspective on what he's doing right now. Really impressive stuff. He's been their leader. You've got to give credit there. Everyone talks about seeding and everything. It's like, yeah, there is to an extent. You do need to factor in how a team is seeded and how good of a player they are on that seeded team. It doesn't mean they're the man, but there is some consideration there. But when you factor in that this kid is, turning 20? 21? He's come off his rookie season. He's now leading a team to a top 10 defense, to a playoff spot, and on any given night can potentially win a playoff series. That's great. That's awesome. He's ticking a lot of boxes. Of course, the playoffs are a different game. We know that. Likely going to run into a Cleveland or New York. Could run into a Milwaukee, or, God forbid for them, they run into Boston. Makes things really interesting. But Banchero's had a hell of a regular season, and you can't deny him that. That's why I've got him 7th. Moving to number 6. And this guy just floats in and out of my top 5, and he's done it for most of the season. At the time of writing, he wasn't in it. That's Anthony Edwards, the Minnesota Timberwolves. 3rd in the West at the time of writing. At the end of the month, 26.1 points, 5.6 rebounds, 5.2 assists, 1.3 steals, 0.6 blocks a game. A little bit over 3 turnovers a game. 46.3 from the field, 36.3 from deep, 82.7 from the free throw line. 71 games played, 35.2 minutes in those games. 49-22 record for 26 wins. Edwards continues to prove why he was the man in his own class. Continues to prove why he had a massive year last year, which was slept on heading into the World Cup. Had a massive World Cup and everyone started to wake up. And now he's out here, spent half the season playing a floor game, and he spent the back half of the season trying to dunk over every man, woman and child. There is a very unique dynamic to his offensive game as a guard. It's kind of worrying, because it's the kind of Derrick Rose kind of athleticism, where you just wonder if it's going to be to his own detriment at times. The other side to it is he's not the most talented defender. The other side of it is that at times he's not necessarily the most valuable player on the floor at all times. I think he certainly is for his own team. But there's still moments there where you understand the impact that Rudy Gobert truly has on this team. Where Naz Reid is proven as to why he's vital as a sixth man. Why Mike Conley's veteran experience and prowess is needed. And why the second opportunities there with Karl Anthony Towns are required. Because Edwards does have really quiet games at times. And it's the really quiet games that let him down. But as far as what he's developing as a game, as a player offensively, when he gets the efficiency up on that and it starts to get a couple of counter moves in when the defense is able to hit him up beyond just being athletic, and then utilising the athleticism beyond the counters, scary stuff. But honestly, the only thing that's keeping out of the top 5 is the time of riding. Ultimately, it's the time of riding. Because sometimes he's in, sometimes he's not. At this point, he wasn't. Minnesota's still fighting for the number 1 seed. He's been massive. For me, he's going to have a tough case trying to crack that All-NBA first team, depending on where he sits. Some days he's in it, some days he's not. If you're basing it off the guards, he's in the second team. If you were at times basing it off the 5 best players in the NBA, he's in it. It's really hard to gauge right now. But Edwards, massive season. Big ups to him. Timberwolves looking dangerous heading into the postseason. So we jump into number 5. And he's not number 1, and he's campaigned a little bit for number 1. But he's certainly been their best player. That's Jason Tatum of the Boston Celtics. Of course, the Celtics, number 1 in the East. Clearly the standout regular season team. And they've set, or looking to set, a franchise record, or league record of 60-win seasons. 27.3 points, 8.2 rebounds, 4.9 assists, 1 steal, 0.6 blocks, less than 3 turnovers. It is his high usage and efficiency that does always strike me there. Tatum, 2.6 turnovers, 47.4 from the field, 37.9 from deep. He has improved his outside shot, 83.2 from the free throw line. 69 games played, 35.9 minutes, 54 and 15 record as the man. 26 of those 54 wins to his name. The big thing for Tatum now is you need to get a big playoff run, a successful playoff run under your belt. Because the one thing we're starting to see from Jason Tatum now is a little bit of Clyde Drexler. Where, yeah, Clyde was the man on a team. Clyde was leading teams. He was having big regular seasons. He was showing glimpses in the playoffs. But when the lights started to shine their brightest, as the number 1 option, sometimes they got a little too hot. And that's the ultimate qualm right now with Jason Tatum. Look, if Jason Tatum's a man through the postseason, Boston going to win a championship, great. Ticking a lot of boxes. Ticked almost every box beyond an MVP at this point. Now, if you were going to base it on availability last year and who I had as leading the league in wins, yeah. We're talking about Jason Tatum as the MVP of the league. He played 70 games. He played more games than Jokic. He played more games than Embiid. He played more games than Giannis. And I had him second in overall. I had him second in total wins for the season. But it now does come down to what can he do in the postseason. Now, that's not discrediting, might I add, this is not discrediting what he's done in the regular season this year. Ultimately, I think everyone knows exactly how I'm voting this at the moment. And the big thing here that gives him the edge over Anthony Edwards, which is why it's no hesitation for me to put him over Edwards, is because he's leading the best team in the regular season right now. And they are the best team by a street. I don't think they're the championship favourites. They're certainly the favourites to come out of the East. But you can't have that big of a margin over your own peers in your own conference and not have something going your way. That's just not going to happen. At no point am I ever going to have a list where that's going to happen. He's just tearing it up. He's having another big season. It's going to be interesting to see what the postseason does, but Tatum has been massive. Tatum right now is sitting in the All-NBA first team. With ease. With ease. Massive season. Can't wait to see what Boston look like in the postseason. Moving to number 4. And it's the stat man himself, around with 34, 9 and 10. Luka Doncic of the Dallas Mavericks, 5th in the West at the time of recording. And again, let me just get back to that rounded. 34 points, 9 rebounds, 10 assists. Truly 34 points, 9.1 rebounds, 9.8 assists, 1.5 steals, 0.5 blocks. And ultimately it is the efficiency with the high ball use. 4 turnovers a game is not great. But Luka's usage rate is through the roof, and the possessions Dallas get is ridiculous. To add to that, he's now close to 49% from the field, a tad under 49%. He's 38% from deep. And he's trying to push 8 out of 10 from the line. And he's got a running mate in a Kyrie Irving that's playing nicely. And defense down in Dallas now, which is making them look better. They're starting to gel. He's played the minimum amount of games, 65 wins, 65 games, 37.4 minutes, 42 and 23 record with him in the team, and 32 wins to his name out of those 42 wins. He is a massive contributor. The question is, does he have the ball in his hands too much come playoff time? Does he have the ball in his hands too much overall to have success? Well, some will argue that the reason that they're having more success is because the ball's getting out of his hands. The query that then becomes of Dallas at that point, is it just a matter of running different isolation plays with a different isolation player, i.e. Kyrie Irving? Because that just seems to be how it's working. Kyrie's a proven commodity. Kyrie's 27 a game on 50, 40, 90. Kyrie's a big shot maker in the playoffs. Kyrie's a big game player in the playoffs. Luka would be very happy to have that next win. But on the other side of it, I don't think Kyrie Irving lays in bed at night going, I can't believe I have Luka Doncic. How am I going to deal with 34, 9 and 10? And of course, we're talking about a Dallas team. If they go on a bad run, they put their head in the sand, you're talking about a playing tournament team again. On the other side of it, when they're up and about, they're in the top 6 and there's no issues. It's totally up in the air as to how that Western Conference is going to finish. But there's no doubt about it that Luka Doncic is going to finish amongst its highest contenders. A massive year. Dallas is starting to make a run at the right time. He's playing some good basketball. He's contributing to wins. Huge. Absolutely huge for Luka Doncic. He's going to be another All-NBA first-teamer. And might I also add, he's also now going to be the holder of a 5-year, I can't believe I'm about to say this, $364 million contract. And this is a man that doesn't have a championship nor an MVP for his troubles. And there's a lot of narrative-based voters out there that think Lucas should be getting one this year. I get it. There's a lot of numbers around it. Doesn't mean it's right. Much like Jason Tatum, Luka's got playoffs where he has to prove himself. But a massive regular season, 32 wins to his name. I can't discredit that. To the podium at number 3, Giannis Antetokounmpo of the Milwaukee Bucks, second in the East. 30.8 points, 11.5 rebounds, 6.4 assists. There are so many godly numbers right now that we have a power forward averaging around at 31, 12 and 6. 1.2 steals, 1 block, 3.4 turnovers. Oh, and by the way, I'm putting it in at 61.4% from the field. And I'm playing elite level defense. So Giannis is going to probably get another All-NBA first team nod. He's likely going to get another All-Defensive nod. Milwaukee are just starting to click where they need to. Could they make a run? Could they surprise people in the East? Because if they do, this man's going to be responsible for it. And I would like to see the person who tries to discredit a man who has 2 championships, 2 MVPs, and 2 finals MVPs, with the 5 to 6 year run that this man is currently having. What are we going to be talking about? 19, 20, 21, 22, 20, 6 year run as a minimum top 3 guy in the league. A 6-year run as a top 3 guy in the league, which resulted in every second year being a championship, an MVP, and a finals MVP. That's tough. That's tough. But with everything that's going on in the league, this stuff just gets overshadowed. All the negative press around the Bucks. The question is, though, this is the one thing, for some reason, the one thing Milwaukee have that's the issue. And again, 61.4% from the field, as I said, 28.6% from deep, 65.9% from the line. He's played 69 games. They're 44 and 25 in those games. I've got him at 32 wins, 35.2 minutes. Can they step up and at least, if they're going to be the second seed, they need to be in the conference finals. This isn't a matter of, yeah, we got bounced last year and we probably should have gone through to nearly take on the Bucks in the Nuggets in the finals. You can't have that this year. If Boston don't win it, you need to. Because there's no one else I can truly believe in right now beyond Boston, and even then, jeez, don't beat yourself. Milwaukee's in that same bracket. This is where Denver becomes a very reliable pick out in the West. But for Giannis right now, clicking on all the cylinders, playing a huge effort on both ends. For the next couple of guys I'm about to mention, if you wanted to weigh up the elite level on both ends of the floor, there's a case for Giannis Antetokounmpo as the best player still in basketball. The other side of it is that the next guy I mentioned is so elite all time on the offensive end, it's not funny, and the other guy is so underrated for playing in a small market, it's not funny. But number 3, Giannis Antetokounmpo of the Milwaukee Bucks. Silver, for me at the moment, he's making a big run at the end because the other guy is slowing down. He's limping over the line. Number 2, though, Nikola Jokic of the Denver Nuggets. Not much needs to be said about Jokic. We've seen what Denver are doing. They are just priming themselves for another postseason run. Second in the West, 26.1 points, 12.3 rebounds, 9 assists. A rounded 26-12 and 9. And of course, we mentioned before Sabonis, 19, 13 and 8. Like, the only other guys that have had this kind of points, rebounds, assist production, one guy, Wilt Chamberlain. And that's whose name keeps coming up here with Nikola Jokic. Probably gives you more and more perspective, not only how dominant Jokic is, how dominant Wilt was. I don't want to hear the error argument. We've got measurables, people, of physical, of athletic specimen. Doesn't matter what area you're in, the man did all of that in Chuck Taylors and Converse. Probably put a bit more respect on his name. But Jokic, as I said, 26, 12 and 9, 1.3 steals, 0.9 blocks, less than 3 turnovers now. Pedestrian, 57.9 from the field, 34.6. His three-point shooting has dipped a little bit. Still a number at the line, but he's still knocking down big shots. 72 games, 34.5 minutes in those games, a 50 and 22 record for 38 wins. Not much more I need to say about Nikola Jokic. Denver just starting to prime up, starting to hit their straps. Jokic still trying to do a little bit where he can. I think he's just getting in that position. He's just getting ready. He understands the important part of the season is soon. And considering that he didn't like the short and off season last year, yeah, he might throw the towel in. Nothing to suggest he will. He might be sick of it. But I'm pretty sure he did like the idea that he went back a champion, won a few horse races, came back and potentially became a champion again. He's got Denver in the best spot possible. He's got his teammates firing, everyone clicking around him. Just a massive impact player. Nikola Jokic may be boring, but playing the game correctly and winning is never boring. If that's boring, don't play. Really simple stuff. And finally, he's slowing down a little bit, and I think that doesn't bode well personally for Oklahoma City in the postseason. But at number 1, I still have Gilgeous-Alexander of the Thunder. First in the West at the time of writing, 30.3 points, 5.5 rebounds, 6.3 assists, 2 steals, 0.9 blocks a game, 2.2 turnovers, and you're adding the fact he's 53.9 from the field, 36.5 from deep, 87.2 from the free throw line. He's got to be all defensive. He's got to be all NBA first team. Beyond efficient both ends of the floor. 71 games, 34.4 minutes, 51 and 20 record, and I've got him responsible for 43 of those 51 wins in games he's played. Josh Giddey, Chet Holmgren, Jalen Williams, pretty much the only people that have won games without him. Dominant season by Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. I'll sing it from the rooftops once again. If he was in New York, if he was in Chicago, if he was in Boston, if he was in LA, he's the best player in the NBA. He's the most advertised athlete in the NBA. Wouldn't even be a debate about it. It wouldn't be close. At all. But my only concern right now is that Shai's slowing down. Will he hold on for the MVP? In my opinion. What does that bode for the Thunder? Because if Shai Gilgeous-Alexander runs out of steam, the Oklahoma City Thunder are not doing much. And that is the one concern that I think anyone who's a fan of the Thunder or a fan of any of their players needs to worry about. They just need to worry about it. But Shai's had a massive year. If I was going to be voting All-NBA first team, he'd be in it. If I was going to be voting All-Defense, he'd be in one of the two teams. Probably not the first team, but certainly the second team. You know, and a lot of people are going, oh, but look at how he plays D. The one thing you've got to consider as well is he's putting in all that effort offensively and still locking up defensively. It's the big tick in the box that I give Giannis. It's the big tick in the box that I give Kawhi Leonard. These guys are still producing to an elite level defensively whilst being epically efficient in an offensive era where you can just exert all your energy and get all the points you want. And it's something a lot of people don't factor in anymore, is the fact that, oh, geez, well, look at what he's doing here and doing there, and oh, how can you consider this? Because you really do have to factor in just how important it is that they're doing it on both ends and doing it efficiently. But at number one, I have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander for the Oklahoma City Thunder as my MVP to the end of March. Just ahead of Nikola Jokic, who sits ahead of Giannis, who sits ahead of Luka, who sits ahead of Tatum. And then from there, it's Anthony Edwards, Paolo Banchero, Tyrese Halliburton, Kevin Durant, Kawhi Leonard. Of course, the honourable mentions there, Steph Curry, Jalen Brunson, Domantas Sabonis, Anthony Davis. And there's pretty much only one or two guys that are missing out. And that's because they haven't played enough. That's because they're just not going to play enough games. They're featured in the list earlier this year. I think you can work out who I'm speaking about. Anyway, guys, that's been my MVP race to the end of March for the 23-24 season. I'm out.